Rebecca, welcome to Culture Camp.
Hi, thank you, Kerry. Great to be here.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, and then I'd love to get into the topics that we're going to talk about because they're two concepts that I've never really thought about in relation to organizational culture. So let's start off with who you are.
Yeah, so I work as a career coach. I specialize in helping people discover purpose, primarily people who are on a spiritual path of some sort.
Oh,
Um, so yeah, I work mostly one-to-one. I just recently finished a book which is due for release in about a week's time. But yeah, that's my main kind of line of work, which wasn't my first career. If I classed myself as having a different career, I've gone through several career changes, which
uh-huh.
I support clients with. So
Okay.
my original career was in corporate retail. So
Okay.
I started life off over in Palm Beach in Florida. I was a
Wow.
swimwear buyer over there. My
Mhm.
first job as a 22-year-old.
That's quite a
And
first job, isn't it? I bet you
yeah,
learned loads
looking back,
about lots of
yeah,
things.
you kind of very fearless, I think, back then.
Yeah.
So I just went for it. But yeah, I was on a graduate program over there and
Mm.
stayed over there for about 5 years. And
Okay.
then the call to come back to the UK was too strong, and to really explore the I suppose the corporate retail world in greater detail. So I came
Mm.
back, lived in London, worked for
Mhm.
Sainsbury's,
Okay.
uh, short stint at Woolworths, and then most recently I ended up at Boots in Nottingham in commercial roles, product development, brand
Sure.
management, that kind of thing. And then in 2010, I decided to take a career break. I could feel that something wasn't quite right. I felt like a bit of a square peg in a round hole,
Mm.
and decided to get off the merry-go-round for a little while. And I had a 5-month career break over in Sydney in Australia.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, which gave me the time and the headspace to really reflect on some of the patterns I was making, going from one job to the next, hoping things would
Hmm.
be different and not really getting under the skin of it. And that
Mm.
gave me the opportunity to really get under the skin of it. Um, so I spent some time meditating, found Kundalini yoga over there, and ended up setting up my own business as
Oh.
a retail and brand consultant, working primarily with creative entrepreneurs, but
Mm.
also a few other well-known brands. But I think my heart really lied with the sort of one-man bands, helping them get started.
Sure.
So I did that for a while, for a few years. I set up a business with one of my clients, a wonderful artist over in Norfolk, and had some pretty successful years working together with her. And then I had what can only be described as a light bulb moment back in 2015 on a beach over in Norfolk, where I just knew I had to retrain as a coach. Um, and so I've spent the last 7 years
Yeah.
on a coaching journey, which yeah, brings us to present day. And yeah, now, as I mentioned earlier, I focus on helping people find their purpose, helping them either make a career change or just reconnect in their
Mm.
current working life.
Wow, and that's quite a journey. That's quite a journey from across the globe, really. And there's definitely a connection with beaches. Definitely a connection with
Absolutely.
decision points happening on beaches.
Yeah, very well observed, Kerry. Yeah, it just helps me get clarity of thought, and I feel very
Yeah.
connected out by the sea. It's or in
Mm.
nature generally, but yeah, absolutely, the sea is very
Yeah.
powerful for me.
So you've had that kind of inside organizations experience, outside organizations experience as a consultant, and then I guess developing organizations with your own organizations and some of your clients. Where does organizational culture come into your world with what you do now?
Mm. So it's one of the factors when I'm helping somebody decide who the best fit might be for them, or what the best fit. So that could be whether they actually work for themselves or they actually work
Hmm.
for an organization, and also what type of culture might be the best fit for them if they do decide to
Okay.
work for somebody else. But this for me comes back to some of the sort of foundations that I look at with a client, primarily their values. So this can be give very strong clues as to what might be a better fit. So do they like autonomy? Do they like creativity? You know, would they thrive more in more of a sort of family type culture, more competitive culture? So it is a very it is a very specific thing that I would look at with a client once they made that decision. But it has to be based on what's important to them initially. So rather than kind of looking from the outside and then seeing what fits that way, it's about saying, this is who I am. What kind of culture might be a good fit for me?
And then I guess sticking with that kind of internal, external theme, do you think you're more successful if you work out the kind of culture that you need and then find that culture that exists and insert yourself into that culture? Or do you think it can work when you understand the culture that you need and then try and shape it around you? I wonder if there's kind of differences around that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is possible that you can shape a culture. I think in certain environments it is more challenging to do it that way, for sure. Depends at what level I think you go into an organization as to how much scope you have to change a culture. I think we can all do something on some scale, but you know, my approach is very much from the inside out. So you're aligning things on the outside to who you are within. So I would always start from that basis. That's not to say if a certain culture almost kind of finds you and instinctively or intuitively you feel like that's the right fit, then that could be guiding you into something. That would be this sort of the caveat, I think, to my approach, if it's really calling you to work in a certain culture.
So those words you're using there, intuition and calling and guidance, kind of takes us to the spirituality side of the work that you do. So career development, career transitions, and spirituality aren't two topics that I'd put together naturally. So share the connections between those things for you.
So there's a number of different connections, but I think, I mean, we talked about intuition, which for me is it's the way that our higher self, that deeper identity of who we are under the surface, how it communicates with us, and also in connection with, I term it as the universe, but other people might have different language. It's how it speaks to us. So I think when we get those urges, they could be really loud, or it could just be a little whisper. Okay, I think you need to explore this or explore that, or even, okay, this is really not a good fit. So quite often clients will come to me saying, you know, I just have a sense there is something else out there I'm meant to be doing. And then our job is to clarify that, but they're listening to that nudge, that whisper, which for me is that intuition, that higher guidance. Some of the other steps that I would take with a client which has a direct spiritual application. So the area of having a gift, which is another way of saying a skill or a strength. But when you use the word gift, it implies that somebody or something is doing the giving. And it's my belief that that the universe can work through us and help bring something into the world. And that's also connected with the idea of a calling. So again, listening for that call. You know, so it could be to go into a certain sector. It could be more specific than that, but just listen to where you're feeling drawn, and that could be books that you feel called to read, podcasts you feel called to listen to, people that you feel called to meet, and they're little breadcrumbs of things to explore. But this idea, it's my belief that we're all here for a reason, which is why I called my book You're Here for a Reason. I truly believe that. And listening for the call and recognizing your gifts as things that you've been given to help you bring that calling out into the world.
And I think from what you're saying, it sounds like the first part is kind of opening yourself up to the possibility of the fact that there may be a voice, a calling, a gift. I wonder if there's anything else that you think people can do if they've heard a whisper. How can they amplify that? Or if they haven't heard anything or aren't open to that just yet, maybe because of their previous experiences, their life to this point, is there anything we can do to kind of amplify?
I'm a big fan of journaling. It's something
Okay,
I
nice.
encourage all my clients to do. And you could even call it the practice of intuitive writing. So
Yeah.
you're actively tuning into that whisper, that voice, and you're just letting it come out onto the page. So you can create a little ritual around that, just to help that guidance come through. I think even just being open to it. So I think recognizing that you have an intuitive side. I believe we all have it.
Yeah.
I think we've probably become disconnected to it generally as a species. I think years and years ago, probably hundreds, thousands of years, I think we had to just listen to our intuition. And I think there is so
instinct,
much,
wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think certainly, my experience being in the corporate world, everything, decisions were made mostly based on fact rather than a hunch. And I get that to some degree. I absolutely get that. But the point I'm trying to make is that can almost be kind of beaten out of you. We lose that connection to to that place within that can really guide you. So I think just acknowledging that you have this intuitive side and then starting to listen for how it comes through for you. So some people feel it as a feeling in their gut, some people in the sort of heart space, some people it's almost well, where did that come from? That's what happened to me on that beach. Like, where's that? I knew where it come from, but it's almost that thought, that idea that just flashes into your head. So I think just recognizing it as such and just being open to the possibility is a first step.
And imagine as an experiment some kind of decision-making meeting beginning with 5 minutes of free journaling, or that kind of spiritual practice or kind of intuition-based practice being used in the workplace. I think we might have some different decisions that are made and some different types of meetings.
I think it takes courage to act on it. I think we can get the messages through, but it almost feels counterintuitive. And again, I think it's just a muscle I think we need to strengthen.
And then use it as a tool, right? It's not that you suddenly have to completely change everything that you do. It's just that sometimes you might want to tap into that a little bit more.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes I'll have a conversation with a client, and if they're in a certain position at work where I'll say, can you think of a time when maybe you've not listened to your intuition? And they'll recall a time when perhaps they've hired somebody onto their team, knowing in their gut they weren't the best fit, and then it started to unravel.
It's often around other people, isn't it, that we get those strong messages through.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Well, I definitely want to read your book, and out in a week. So by the time this comes out, it will be out. So where can people find the book? Where can people find out more about you, Rebecca?
So my website is rebeccakirk.co.uk. So there is a whole page on the book and a link to be able to buy that. And there's some other free resources as well. So if you're kind of feeling a bit unsettled in your work and need a bit of guidance, there's a quiz, there's a free on-demand webinar to help with mindset and beliefs, building clarity and confidence. So some free stuff on there for your listeners.
Lovely. Well, I will go and have a look myself. And thank you for spending that little bit of time with me, Rebecca. It's been great.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Kerry.
Take care.